The sun cast a golden glow over the bustling streets of downtown Chicago, where Harper's Cafe, a cozy corner establishment, welcomed its regular morning crowd. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversations and the clatter of ceramic mugs. Inside, Emma Carter tightened her apron and offered her signature warm smile to a customer at the counter. Emma had worked at Harper's Cafe for 5 years. To her, it wasn't just a job, but a lifeline. Balancing multiple shifts, she supported her younger sister, Lily, who was working her way through college. The financial strain was constant, but Emma's positivity never wavered. Her late mother's wisdom echoed in her mind. Kindness and hard work will take you farther than you ever imagine. The morning routine was in full swing when the cafe's bell chimed, signaling a new arrival. Emma glanced toward the door and froze momentarily. Standing there was Daniel Crawford. He wasn't just any customer. He was a billionaire entrepreneur whose name dominated headlines. Known for his philanthropy and razor-sharp business acumen, Daniel was a public figure who rarely ventured into small cafes unaccompanied. Yet here he was, wearing a sleek gray suit and carrying a leather briefcase, his demeanor calm yet imposing. Emma quickly gathered herself. She knew the protocol when serving high-profile customers: respect their privacy. With a professional smile, she approached him. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Harper's Cafe. Would you like a table where you can work undisturbed?" Daniel glanced at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. He wasn't used to being asked what he needed. It was usually the other way around. "That would be great," he replied, his voice low and even. Emma led him to a corner table near the large window, where sunlight poured in, offering a tranquil spot to work. She noticed his brief glance around the cafe, taking in its rustic charm. After placing a menu in front of him, she added, "If there's anything specific you'd like, just let me know. I'll make sure you're comfortable." "Thank you, Emma," he said, reading her name tag. His genuine tone caught her off guard. As Emma walked back to the counter, she could feel the eyes of other patrons on Daniel. Whispers rippled through the cafe as customers recognized him, and a few phones discreetly emerged to snap pictures. Emma frowned. She had seen moments like this spiral into chaos, and she resolved to ensure it wouldn't happen here, not on her watch. While brewing his order, a perfectly balanced Americano, Emma couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity about Daniel Crawford. What brought a billionaire to their humble cafe? Was he hiding from the world, seeking solace, or merely craving simplicity? Whatever the reason, she decided it wasn't her place to pry. Her job was to provide excellent service, no matter the customer. When she placed his drink on the table, Daniel nodded his thanks, already engrossed in his laptop. Emma returned to her duties, unaware that her actions that morning would soon set off a series of events that would change her life forever. The hum of Harper's Cafe grew louder as the morning rush peaked. Regulars filed in for their daily caffeine fix, while new customers lingered to enjoy the warm, inviting atmosphere. All the while, Emma kept a close eye on the corner table where Daniel Crawford sat, engrossed in his laptop. She noticed his occasional glances outside the window, as if seeking the solace of the world beyond the cafe. It didn't take long for murmurs to ripple through the room. "That's Daniel Crawford," someone whispered. "Is it really him? What's he doing here?" Another asked, craning their neck to see. A group of college students seated a few tables away began whispering animatedly, their phones poised to take photos. Emma's heart sank. She understood the allure of such a high-profile figure, but the cafe's charm lay in its unspoken rule of respecting everyone's space, famous or not. Emma approached the students with a calm but firm demeanor. "Excuse me," she said, her tone polite yet assertive. "I understand you're excited, but Mr. Crawford has come here for some quiet time. Let's all respect his privacy." The students hesitated, looking sheepish as they lowered their phones. "Sorry," one of them mumbled, and Emma offered a reassuring smile before moving on to another group. At the counter, Brian, the cafe's manager, had been watching the scene unfold, his wiry frame tensed as he approached Emma. "What are you doing?" he hissed, keeping his voice low but sharp. "Do you have any idea who that man is? This is our chance to get some major publicity. Let the customers engage with him. Imagine the buzz if someone posts about Harper's Cafe being Daniel Crawford's hangout spot." Emma shook her head, standing her ground. He came here for peace, Brian, not to be a photo op. If we hound him, he'll never come back, and we'll ruin the cafe's reputation for being a welcoming place. Brian's jaw tightened, his irritation evident. You don't make those decisions. I do. This is my cafe, and I won't have you sabotaging opportunities like this. Emma took a steadying breath. With all due respect, Brian, sometimes the right thing isn't the easiest thing. I won't let anyone disturb him while he's here. Brian glared at her but said nothing, retreating to his office. Meanwhile, Daniel, who had been typing on his laptop, paused to glance up. He had caught snippets of Emma's interactions and was surprised by her unwavering stance. He noticed the quiet determination in her eyes and the way she moved through the cafe, ensuring he remained undisturbed despite the growing curiosity around him. Emma's quiet efforts paid off. The whispers gradually died down, and the cafe returned to its usual hum. Customers went back to their coffee and conversations, respecting the unspoken boundary Emma had enforced. As she passed by his table, Emma felt a pair of eyes on her and glanced up. Daniel gave her a small, appreciative nod. Though he said nothing, the gratitude in his expression was clear. For Emma, it was just another part of her job, ensuring that every customer, famous or not, felt comfortable. But little did she know, her actions had left a deep impression on the man who rarely experienced such unselfish kindness. The hum of the cafe carried on as Emma moved between tables, her attention divided between serving customers and keeping the atmosphere calm. She noticed Daniel occasionally looking up from his laptop, his gaze following her as she interacted with customers. Unbeknownst to her, he was silently taking note of her professionalism and unwavering resolve. In the meantime, Brian's frustration simmered. From his office, he had observed Emma discouraging patrons from engaging with Daniel. To him, her actions were a direct affront to his authority and a missed opportunity to capitalize on a high-profile guest. As the morning rush began to taper, Brian stormed out of his office, his face flushed with anger. He approached Emma, who was clearing a table near Daniel's corner. "Emma, a word," he barked, loud enough for nearby customers to notice. Emma straightened, her expression calm but wary. "Yes, Brian?" Brian's voice was sharp and accusatory. "What do you think you're doing? You've been actively turning away attention from Mr. Crawford. Do you have any idea what this could mean for our cafe's reputation? For our business?" Emma held her ground, her voice steady but firm. "Brian, I'm doing what's right for the customer. Mr. Crawford didn't come here for publicity. He came here for peace. We owe him that as part of our service." Brian scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. "Service? You think ignoring a golden opportunity is good service? Your job is to follow my orders, not to play moral compass." Emma felt a knot form in her stomach, but she refused to back down. Respecting a customer's privacy is good service. If we exploit him, we lose the integrity this cafe is known for. That's not the kind of place I want to work for. Brian's eyes narrowed, his anger boiling over. "Then maybe you shouldn't work here at all." The words hung heavy in the air, drawing the attention of several customers, including Daniel, who discreetly closed his laptop to listen. "Are you firing me, Brian?" Emma asked, her voice steady despite the sting of his words. "I am," Brian snapped. "Pack your things and leave. You're done here." A hush fell over the cafe as customers exchanged shocked glances. Emma's heart ached, 5 years of loyalty and hard work dismissed in a moment of anger. But instead of pleading or arguing, she stood tall, her dignity intact. "Very well," she said quietly. "Thank you for the opportunity to work here. I hope you'll come to see that treating people with respect is worth more than any publicity stunt." Emma walked to the back to gather her belongings, her mind racing. The sting of losing her job was sharp, but she felt no regret for standing by her principles. As she returned to the floor to leave, she noticed Daniel standing near the counter, his laptop bag slung over one shoulder. He stepped forward, his expression unreadable, but his voice calm and commanding. "Excuse me, Brian," Daniel said, his tone cutting through the tense silence. "I couldn't help but overhear." Brian turned, his irritation replaced with nervousness upon realizing who was addressing him. "Mr. Crawford, I hope you're satisfied with your visit." Daniel's piercing gaze didn't waver. "No, I'm not. What I just witnessed was appalling. Emma demonstrated integrity and professionalism, yet you punished her for it. That says more about your leadership than her actions." Brian stammered, his face pale. I? I didn't mean. Daniel held up a hand, silencing him. I won't be returning to this establishment, and I'll be sharing my experience with others. Good luck with your business. With that, Daniel turned to Emma, his stern expression softening. Emma, may I have a word outside? Emma hesitated but nodded, her curiosity outweighing her confusion. As they stepped out into the crisp morning air, she braced herself for what was to come, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of an extraordinary new chapter in her life. Outside Harper's Cafe, the morning bustle of downtown Chicago carried on, indifferent to the emotional whirlwind Emma was experiencing. The crisp air stung her cheeks as she stepped onto the sidewalk, her belongings bundled in a small box. She turned to Daniel Crawford, whose composed demeanor was tinged with an intensity that made her stomach flutter with nervous anticipation. Mr. Crawford, Emma began, but Daniel held up a hand, his expression kind but firm. Please, call me Daniel, he said. And before you say anything, let me start by saying this. What you did in there was remarkable. Emma blinked, surprised. Remarkable? I just lost my job for standing up for what I believed in. Daniel nodded. Exactly. You stood your ground, knowing the consequences, because it was the right thing to do. That kind of integrity is rare, especially in a world where people often prioritize self-interest over principles. Emma felt her cheeks flush, unsure how to respond. She clutched the box in her arms tighter, the weight of her belongings a stark reminder of her precarious situation. Thank you, she said quietly. But I'm not sure where to go from here. Jobs like that don't come easily. Daniel's piercing gaze softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Well, that's why I wanted to speak with you. I believe your values and work ethic are exactly what my company needs. Emma tilted her head, confused. Your company? Daniel extended his hand. Daniel Crawford, CEO of Crawford Enterprises. Emma's breath hitched. While she had recognized his face, the full weight of his identity hadn't sunk in until now. Crawford Enterprises was one of the largest and most respected corporations in the country, known not only for its business acumen, but also for its philanthropic initiatives. I know who you are, Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. But why would you want someone like me to work for you? Daniel's smile widened. Because people like you are exactly what my company needs. Individuals with integrity, compassion, and the courage to stand up for what's right. I saw that in you today. I'd like to offer you a position at Crawford Enterprises. Emma stared at him, her mind struggling to process his words. A position? But I don't have any corporate experience. I've been a waitress for years. Daniel shook his head. Experience can be taught. Character cannot. I have a role in mind that I think you'd excel in, and I'm willing to provide any training you need. You've already shown you have the qualities I value most in an employee. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as the weight of the moment hit her. Just minutes ago, she had been fired from her job, unsure of what the future held. Now, she was standing before one of the most influential men in the country, being offered an opportunity beyond her wildest dreams. I don't know what to say, she stammered. Say yes, Daniel said simply, his smile warm and encouraging. Emma took a shaky breath, then nodded. Yes, I'll accept. Daniel extended his hand again, and this time, Emma shook it, her grip firm despite the trembling in her fingers. Welcome to Crawford Enterprises, Daniel said. As they walked toward his car, Emma couldn't help but glance back at Harper's Cafe one last time. The place that had been her livelihood for 5 years now felt like a distant chapter, eclipsed by the promise of a new beginning. She had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but for the first time in years, Emma felt a glimmer of hope, a belief that perhaps standing by her principles could lead to something extraordinary after all. The next morning, Emma awoke to the faint hum of her phone vibrating incessantly on the nightstand. Still groggy, she reached for it, her heart skipping a beat as she saw countless notifications flooding her screen. Messages, missed calls, and social media alerts. Confused, Emma scrolled through her messages, her eyes widening as she read the supportive words from friends, old coworkers, and even strangers. Emma, you're incredible. I saw the post from Daniel Crawford. You're an inspiration. Your story is trending everywhere. So proud of you. You give us all hope. Thank you for standing up for what's right. Her breath caught as she opened her social media apps. Daniel Crawford's post about her had gone viral, It featured a photo of Harper's Cafe with a caption that read, "Yesterday, I witnessed true integrity in action." Emma Carter, a waitress with unparalleled courage, stood up for a customer's dignity, even at the cost of her job. Her actions remind us that values matter, both in life and in business. Emma, thank you for inspiring me. Crawford Enterprises is lucky to have you on board. The post had garnered hundreds of thousands of likes, shares, and comments. People around the world were applauding Emma's bravery and condemning the actions of her former manager. Emma's hands trembled as she read through the comments. This is the kind of story we need more of. Well done, Emma. Brian should be ashamed of himself. Respect to Daniel Crawford for recognizing true talent. Emma's story reminds us all to stand up for what we believe in, no matter the cost. Overwhelmed, Emma set her phone down and took a deep breath. The events of the previous day felt surreal. She had gone from being an ordinary waitress to a viral sensation in less than 24 hours. A knock at her door startled her. She opened it to find a courier holding a large envelope. "Miss Carter?" the courier asked. "Yes, that's me," Emma replied, signing for the delivery. Inside the envelope was an official job offer from Crawford Enterprises. Along with a detailed contract outlining her position, salary, and benefits, there was a handwritten note from Daniel. "Emma, welcome to Crawford Enterprises. I've assigned you a role in our corporate social responsibility department. Your insights and integrity will make a real difference. Looking forward to seeing what we can achieve together. Best, Daniel." Emma's eyes filled with tears. The generous salary and benefits package outlined in the contract were far beyond anything she had ever imagined. For the first time in years, the weight of financial insecurity began to lift. Taking a moment to compose herself, Emma knew this opportunity was more than just a job. It was a chance to start fresh, to build a life that aligned with her values. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her attention back to the flood of messages. Among them was one from her old friend, Hannah. "Emma, you're famous. When can we celebrate?" Emma laughed through her tears, her heart swelling with gratitude. She knew her journey was far from over, but for the first time, the future felt bright. Later that day, as Emma prepared to meet with Daniel for an orientation at Crawford Enterprises, she reflected on how quickly life could change. Her actions at Harper's Cafe had been driven by principle, not expectation. Yet those principles had led her to an opportunity beyond her wildest dreams. As she left her apartment to embrace her new beginning, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world was watching, and she was ready to prove that integrity and courage could truly change lives, starting with her own. Back at Harper's Cafe, the atmosphere was anything but cheerful. The viral story of Emma's dismissal had unleashed a torrent of public outrage against the establishment. Customers who had once praised the cafe for its cozy ambiance now turned against it, bombarding online review platforms with scathing critiques. "Shame on you, Harper's Cafe, for firing someone like Emma. Disgusting management. I'll never eat here again. Brian needs to go. No one deserves to be treated like that." The cafe's social media pages were flooded with negative comments, drowning out any previous praise. Videos and posts shared by former employees and customers alike painted a picture of a toxic work environment under Brian's leadership. Inside the cafe, Brian paced nervously, his usual smug demeanor replaced by visible anxiety. His attempts to address the backlash had only made matters worse. A hastily written statement he posted online, claiming that Emma had been insubordinate and that her dismissal was justified, was met with immediate ridicule. Insubordinate for protecting a customer's privacy? That's rich. Brian, just admit you're wrong. The more you talk, the worse it gets. Maybe you should take a page from Emma's book and own up to your mistakes. Even the regular customers began to dwindle. The once bustling cafe was now eerily quiet during peak hours, with only a handful of patrons trickling in. Staff members worked in tense silence, many of them resentful of Brian for dragging the cafe into infamy. "Have you seen the latest reviews?" one barista whispered to another. "People are saying they'll never come back as long as Brian's here." Brian's temper flared at the smallest mistakes, his frustration bubbling over as he struggled to maintain control. He couldn't deny the truth staring him in the face. Harper's Cafe was on a fast track to ruin, and he was the one to blame. Meanwhile, Emma, now fully immersed in her new role at Crawford Enterprises, couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions when she heard about the cafe's downfall. Friends and former coworkers kept her updated on the situation, many of them reaching out to express their admiration for how she had handled herself. "I don't know how you stayed so calm," one former coworker texted. Brian's finally getting what he deserves. But Emma didn't feel any satisfaction in Brian's struggles. Instead, she reflected on her own journey, choosing to see the situation as a lesson rather than a source of vindication. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, Emma came across a particularly harsh article about Harper's Cafe. It detailed the sharp decline in business and hinted that the cafe might close its doors permanently if things didn't improve soon. Emma sighed, her heart heavy. Despite everything, she didn't wish for anyone to fail. She hoped that Brian would use this opportunity to reflect and grow from his mistakes. Maybe this will teach him to treat people better, she thought. Brian, however, was far from reaching that point. As days turned into weeks, his desperation grew. He tried implementing gimmicks to lure customers back, discounts, themed events, but nothing worked. The public had made up its mind, and Brian's reputation was beyond repair. The final blow came when the cafe's investors pulled their support, citing irreparable damage to the brand. With no choice left, Brian was forced to announce the closure of Harper's Cafe, a decision that left him both bitter and defeated. For Emma, the news of the closure marked the end of a chapter she hadn't expected to revisit so soon. As she continued to thrive at Crawford Enterprises, she realized that standing by her principles hadn't just changed her life. It had also set an example, forcing those who once belittled integrity to confront their own shortcomings. Emma's first day at Crawford Enterprises felt like stepping into a dream. As she entered the grand lobby of the corporate headquarters, her breath caught in her throat. The polished marble floors gleamed beneath the crystal chandeliers that hung from the high ceilings. Glass walls offered stunning views of the city, and every detail, from the artwork adorning the walls to the sleek modern furniture, screamed wealth and success. She paused at the entrance, her eyes wide with awe. This wasn't just a new office. It was a whole new world, a world she had never imagined being part of, let alone excelling in. A young woman in a sharp suit approached her with a warm smile. "You must be Emma. Welcome to Crawford Enterprises. I'm Megan, and I'll be showing you around today." Emma shook her hand, still in a daze. "Thank you. It's all a bit overwhelming." Megan chuckled, her smile reassuring. "It's normal to feel that way, but don't worry, you'll get used to it quickly." As they walked through the corridors, Emma marveled at the openness of the office spaces, the hum of conversations, and the sheer efficiency with which everything ran. This was the antithesis of the small, cramped cafe where she had spent years serving coffee to tired customers. Here, people walked with purpose, their conversations filled with strategic goals and ideas for the future. The atmosphere was alive with ambition. They passed by several departments, and Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. It was clear that Crawford Enterprises wasn't just a company, it was a powerhouse, and she was now a part of it. When they finally reached her office, Emma was taken aback by its size and grandeur. It was larger than her entire apartment back in the city, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of downtown Chicago. The desk, a sleek piece of modern design, was already set up with her nameplate and several welcome gifts. A note from Daniel was placed on the center of the desk, written in his neat handwriting. "Emma, welcome aboard. Your role here will be to help us elevate our corporate social responsibility efforts. I believe your integrity and passion for doing what's right will help guide us toward making a meaningful difference. Let's make an impact together. Best, Daniel." Emma stood still for a moment, reading the note over and over. It felt unreal that just a few weeks ago, she had been struggling to make ends meet, uncertain of what the future held. And now, she was sitting in an office with a view of the city, about to embark on a career at one of the most influential companies in the world. She sat down at her desk, trying to calm her racing heart. This was her new reality. This was the life she had earned through hard work, courage, and a refusal to compromise on her values. She had fought for what was right, and now she was being rewarded with an opportunity to shape a better world for others. As she looked out the window, the weight of her mother's words echoed in her mind. Always stay true to yourself, Emma. No matter where life takes you, never lose who you are. Emma smiled softly. Her mother's wisdom had guided her to this moment, and now she was determined to honor that legacy. Later that day, Daniel stopped by her office to introduce himself in person. His presence was commanding, yet warm, as he extended his hand to Emma with a genuine smile. "I'm glad you're here," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "I've heard great things about you already, and I have no doubt you'll make a significant impact here." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. He was even more impressive in person than she had imagined, charming, confident, and seemingly always in control. But it was his belief in her that mattered most. It was that belief that gave her the courage to take on this new challenge with everything she had. "Thank you, Daniel," she replied, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I'm excited to be here, and I'll do my best to live up to the faith you've placed in me." Daniel nodded. "I have no doubt you will." As he left her office, Emma sat back in her chair, a sense of peace settling over her. She was no longer just the waitress who had stood up for what was right. She was now part of a team that could change the world. And she was ready to begin. The days at Crawford Enterprises were fast-paced, and Emma quickly found herself swept up in the demands of her new role. Daniel's faith in her was evident as he involved her in meetings, introduced her to influential people, and entrusted her with projects that focused on corporate social responsibility. But despite the excitement of her new position, there was something Emma couldn't shake, a sense of duty to the service workers she had left behind at Harper's Cafe. One evening, as Emma was preparing for a meeting, she received a text from one of her former colleagues, Lily, who still worked at the cafe. The message was brief but heart-wrenching. "The cafe is closing. Brian finally had to sell the place. It's such a mess. I don't know what we're going to do." Emma's heart sank. She had heard rumors about the cafe's financial troubles following her departure, but hearing the news of its closure hit her hard. It wasn't just about the cafe itself. It was about the people who had worked there, often with little recognition and even less pay. As she sat in her office, staring out at the city below, Emma couldn't help but reflect on her own experiences as a waitress. The long hours, the mistreatment, the constant struggle to make ends meet. Her journey had taken a dramatic turn, but many others were still fighting battles she had left behind. And she couldn't forget them. That evening, as she scrolled through social media, Emma noticed a post from one of her followers, an anonymous service worker who shared their struggles in a heart-wrenching message. The post described the long shifts, the underpayment, and the lack of respect they faced daily. Emma felt a surge of empathy. She knew the pain all too well. She had been there, at the mercy of an unfair system, trying to make a living while being treated as invisible. Determined to use her newfound platform for good, Emma decided to write a post that would amplify the voices of those who were often overlooked. She wanted to stand up for the workers who weren't able to stand up for themselves, to show them that they weren't alone. The post she wrote was heartfelt and direct. "To all the service workers out there, I see you. I've walked in your shoes, and I know the struggles you face every day. It's not easy. You work long hours, deal with difficult customers, and often receive little in return. But I want you to know something. Your work matters. You are valuable, and you deserve respect and dignity in every workplace. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Keep pushing for better, because change is possible. I'm proof of that." The post was shared widely, resonating with thousands of service workers across the country. Emma's words sparked a conversation that reached beyond her immediate followers. News outlets picked up the story, and soon, her message became a rallying cry for fair treatment in the service industry. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded in from all corners of the globe, with people sharing their own stories of mistreatment and abuse in the workplace. But there was also a sense of hope in the air, a feeling that, for the first time, their voices were being heard. Emma received messages from former employees of Harper's Cafe, many of whom had felt trapped in a toxic environment. They thanked her for standing up to Brian and for showing them that they didn't have to settle for less. Her former colleagues, some of whom had lost their jobs or struggled to find new work, expressed their gratitude, saying that Emma's actions had given them the strength to push for better working conditions in their own lives. As Emma read through the messages, she couldn't help but feel proud of what she had accomplished. She had used her newfound position to shed light on an issue that so many had been afraid to address. But this was only the beginning. There was still so much work to be done. The next day, Daniel called her into his office. He had been following her online campaign and was impressed by her determination to make a difference. "Emma, I've been reading your posts," he said, his voice full of admiration. "You're not just making an impact here. You're changing the narrative for service workers everywhere. You're becoming a voice for the voiceless." Emma smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. "I just want to help. I've been in their shoes, and if I can make a difference, even a small one, I'll do it." Daniel nodded. "You're doing more than that. You're inspiring people. And that's exactly what we need at Crawford Enterprises." Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. She had found not only a job, but a platform, a way to use her voice for something bigger than herself. As she continued to advocate for service workers, Emma became more than just an employee at Crawford Enterprises. She became a symbol of hope for those who had been marginalized, a beacon of light in a world that often overlooked the hard work and dedication of those in the service industry. Her mission was clear: to keep fighting for what was right, to keep standing up for those who had no one to fight for them. Because, as she had learned, real change often started with a single, courageous voice. As the months passed, Emma's life at Crawford Enterprises settled into a rhythm. Yet the journey she had embarked on was far from ordinary. Her days were filled with meetings, strategy sessions, and a sense of purpose that drove her forward. But amidst the bustling activities of her professional success, Emma never lost sight of the lessons she had learned along the way about integrity, humility, and the importance of staying grounded. One chilly afternoon, as she sat in her office reviewing some reports, Emma received a message from Lily, the friend she had stayed in touch with after the cafe closed. The message was simple, but carried a weight that made Emma pause. "Emma, I just wanted to thank you for everything you've done. I can't believe it, but I've finally found a job at a restaurant that treats its employees with respect. They actually listen to us, and for the first time in years, I feel valued." Emma smiled as she read the words, a warmth filling her chest. It was small victories like these, stories of people finding dignity and fairness in their work, that kept her motivated. While her own life had dramatically changed, it was the ripple effect of her actions that brought her the deepest satisfaction. She had taken a stand, and now others were benefiting from it. This was what truly mattered to her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. It was Megan, the woman who had shown Emma around her new office on her first day. Megan had become a friend, and the two often shared lunch breaks and conversations about the challenges and triumphs they faced in the corporate world. "Hey, Emma," Megan greeted her with a warm smile. "I have some news. Daniel wants you to join him for a dinner tonight. He says it's an informal thing, but I thought you should know." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Dinner? With Daniel?" Megan nodded. "Yep. Apparently, it's to discuss some new initiatives for the company. But don't worry, it's not a business meeting. He wants it to be more relaxed. Just a small group of people." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Daniel had always been professional with her, though they had shared occasional friendly moments. The idea of joining him for dinner outside the office felt surreal. "Okay," Emma said, pushing aside the nervousness that bubbled up. "I'll be there." As the evening approached, Emma stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her dress and running her fingers through her hair. She couldn't help but feel a bit out of place, even though she had grown accustomed to the elegance of Crawford Enterprises. This dinner wasn't just another event. It was an opportunity to further connect with Daniel and the other key players in the company. When she arrived at the restaurant, a chic venue located on the top floor of a skyscraper, she was greeted by Daniel himself. His presence was as commanding as always, but there was a warmth in his demeanor that made Emma feel at ease. "Good evening, Emma." Daniel greeted her with a genuine smile, his voice steady. I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for inviting me, Emma replied, feeling the nerves settle as she realized that this wasn't some grand affair. It was just a conversation among colleagues, with the shared goal of doing good work. They took their seats, and soon the group gathered around the table began to chat casually. Daniel led the conversation, but he made a point to involve everyone, making sure each person had a chance to contribute. It wasn't long before Emma found herself talking about the things that mattered most to her. Her experience as a waitress, the struggles of workers in the service industry, and how businesses could play a role in creating fairer working environments. It was during this conversation that Emma realized just how far she had come. In the past, she had only dreamed of standing in rooms like these, discussing the issues that shaped her life with the decision-makers who had the power to make real change. Now she was part of that conversation. When the meal came to an end, Daniel stood up, offering a toast. The room fell quiet as he raised his glass. To Emma, he began, his voice filled with sincerity, for inspiring us all with your courage, your integrity, and your commitment to making the world a better place. You've not only impacted Crawford Enterprises, but you've touched lives far beyond these walls. Here's to continued growth and the difference we can all make together. The room echoed with applause, and Emma felt a surge of emotion. She had worked hard to get to this point, but hearing Daniel's words made her realize that the true reward wasn't in the accolades or recognition. It was in the opportunity to create a positive impact. Later that evening, as she walked back to her apartment, Emma reflected on the path that had brought her here. She thought about the young waitress she once was, the woman who had felt invisible, overlooked by the world. Now, she was standing at the forefront of change, using her voice to advocate for those who still needed to be heard. But even as her life had changed, Emma remained humble. She never let the success or the recognition cloud the values that had guided her from the very beginning. It was her humility, her refusal to let the world define her, that had made her journey so meaningful. She knew there was still much to be done. The world wasn't perfect, and the fight for fairness was ongoing. But Emma had come to understand that, no matter how big the challenges, it was the small, consistent efforts, driven by integrity and kindness, that created lasting change. And as she looked ahead to the future, she knew she would continue to walk this path with the same humility, the same determination, and the same commitment to doing what was right. The days that followed that memorable dinner seemed to blend together in a haze of progress and achievement. Emma had not only solidified her place within Crawford Enterprises, but had become a symbol of the values that the company now embraced: integrity, hard work, and the power of standing up for what was right. Her voice had made an impact, and her influence was growing, but she had learned to embrace it with humility and grace. Every challenge she faced was an opportunity to learn, grow, and make a difference. One crisp morning, Emma arrived at the office with a sense of anticipation. It wasn't just another busy day in the corporate world. Today was the day of the quarterly executive meeting, a gathering where decisions that would shape the future of Crawford Enterprises were made. As she walked into the conference room, she was greeted with nods of acknowledgement and warm smiles from her colleagues. But it was Daniel's presence, calm yet commanding, that stood out the most. "Emma," he greeted her, offering her a seat beside him at the long, polished table. "We're glad to have you with us today. I think you'll bring some fresh perspective to the table." Emma smiled, still a little amazed that she was now sitting at the heart of these important discussions. A few months ago, she had never imagined that she would be part of a meeting like this, let alone contributing ideas and strategies to the company's growth. Yet, here she was, ready to dive in. As the meeting unfolded, Emma felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. The team was focused on expanding the company's community outreach programs and improving employee well-being across their branches. Emma's background in the service industry had given her a unique understanding of the struggles workers often faced. She spoke passionately about the importance of offering fair wages, promoting work-life balance, and creating an environment where employees felt valued and supported. Her words were met with nods of agreement, and as the conversation evolved, Emma found herself leading a discussion on new initiatives that would provide better benefits for service workers. It was clear that Daniel and the other executives were not only listening, but genuinely interested in the ideas she was presenting. At one point, Daniel turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Emma, I've been meaning to talk to you about something. You've shown incredible leadership in these discussions, and I think you're ready to take on more responsibility. How would you feel about heading up our corporate social responsibility division? You'd have the resources to bring your vision to life." Emma was taken aback by the offer. The role would put her at the forefront of the company's efforts to create positive change both within and outside the organization. It was a challenge she had never imagined, but one that felt perfectly aligned with her goals. Thank you, Daniel," Emma replied, her voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I'd be honored to take on the role. I believe we can make a real difference, not just in our company, but in the wider community." The meeting continued, and as the day came to a close, Emma reflected on how far she had come. From the young woman serving coffee at Harper's Cafe, unsure of her future, to now being entrusted with a pivotal role in a thriving global enterprise, her journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. But what struck her most was the realization that none of this had been handed to her. She had fought for her place, for the values she believed in, and for the opportunities that had the power to change lives. Later that evening, as Emma sat in her apartment, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lily, and after reading it, Emma couldn't help but smile. "Emma, I just got promoted to shift supervisor. I can't believe how much has changed. Thank you for showing me that it's possible to have a voice and stand up for what's right." Tears pricked at the corners of Emma's eyes as she reread the message. This was the reason she had fought so hard, to give people the hope and courage to pursue their own dreams, just as she had. Her story wasn't just her own anymore. It was the story of countless others whose lives had been touched by her actions. As the months passed, Emma continued to lead the corporate social responsibility division with a fierce dedication to creating positive change. Crawford Enterprises flourished under her guidance, implementing new programs that improved employee well-being, supported local communities, and championed sustainability. The company's reputation grew, and so did Emma's influence, not only within the company, but across industries. And yet, through it all, Emma remained true to herself. She never forgot the lessons her mother had taught her, the struggles she had faced as a young waitress, and the reason she had taken that stand for Daniel. It wasn't about the accolades, the recognition, or the power. It was about doing the right thing, no matter the cost. It was about living with integrity, knowing that even the smallest acts of courage could spark a chain reaction that changed lives forever. As she looked out over the city skyline from her office, Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey had just begun. The road ahead was filled with challenges, but she was ready. She had proven to herself and to the world that one person could make a difference, and she would continue to do so every day, in every way she could. The future was bright, and Emma knew that with her unwavering commitment to integrity, anything was possible. Emma Carter's story was one of resilience, courage, and an unyielding commitment to doing what was right, no matter the obstacles. From a humble waitress to a powerful leader in the corporate world, Emma had defied expectations, proving that integrity was not just a virtue, it was a powerful force that could transform lives. As her influence continued to grow, she became a beacon of hope for those who felt powerless, a reminder that standing up for what's right could lead to extraordinary change. Her journey wasn't just about career success. It was about using her position to uplift others, to advocate for the voiceless, and to create a world where kindness and fairness were not just ideals, but everyday realities. Years later, Emma would look back at the pivotal moment when she stood up for Daniel Crawford in that bustling cafe, and she would smile. That simple act of courage had set her on a path that had not only changed her life, but had touched countless others along the way. Through her work, her leadership, and her unwavering principles, Emma left a lasting legacy, one that would inspire generations to come. And in the end, it wasn't the power or wealth she had acquired that mattered most. It was the knowledge that in a world that often seemed driven by ambition and greed, one person's integrity could create ripples of change that would never fade. Emma had proven that, indeed, anything was possible when you stayed true to yourself. Thank you so much for joining us and following Emma's incredible journey from waitress to powerful leader. We hope her story has inspired you to stay true to your principles and believe in the power of integrity. Your support means the world to us, and we're so grateful that you took the time to watch until the very end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming and inspiring content. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life, and we'd love for you to be part of our growing community. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our future videos. Thank you again for being part of this journey, and we can't wait to share more with you soon. Stay inspired, and always remember, small acts of courage can lead to extraordinary change.